guys, welcome to my YouTube and welcome to my kitchen. There's loads of exciting things in store for 2024 and I am so excited to be here, but let's get into today's recipe. Today we are going to be making these blueberry jam donuts. Jam donuts are one of my all-time favourite foods, but they are a bit of a labour of love, so let's head back to yesterday to get the dough started. We're doing a brioche donut, so it's an enriched dough. We've got butter and eggs and milk going in here. So to start off, the very first thing we want to do is activate our yeast. So I'm using these yeast sachets. They come in a little box like this just because they're super handy. Next, we're going in with some caster sugar and some warm milk. We want our milk to be around 30 degrees, just above room temperature. The reason for this is we want it to kind of bring our yeast to life. We're just going to give this a quick whisk and then let it sit for 5 minutes until it gets nice and bubbly. So our yeast is foamed up nicely, he's come to life. So now it's time to get in some of the rest of our ingredients. So I'm starting here with 3 eggs, free range of course. We're just going to crack them straight into our yeast mixture. Next we've got some plain flour, some salt. I've got Himalayan pink salt here, but you could use any kind of salt, sea salt, table salt. And I've just got half a teaspoon of nutmeg. So we're going to get this into our stand mixer with the dough hook attachment, and we're going to knead it for about 5 minutes. So we've just brought our ingredients together and we're going to add now a shot of rum. I'm going to use a spiced rum. You could use vodka or a Bacardi or something you've got at home. I just like a spiced rum because it adds a nice flavour to our dough too. Some people say that adding alcohol into your brioche dough stops the donuts from absorbing too much oil. It does give us a nice, like, even golden crust when they go in the fryer, but really I just put it in because I want to have a little drink. So now we're going to turn it back on and let it knead for around 5 minutes before we add our butter in. So our dough has come together really nicely. It's started to clean the sides of the bowl and it's starting to look really nice and smooth, and it's very nice and soft. Now we're going to start to add in some butter. We want to do this bit by bit so it doesn't like soup around the bottom of our dough, and we're using softened butter here. Once you've incorporated all your butter into your dough, you can let it knead for about 5 minutes until it's cleaned the outside of the bowl and it's looking really nice and smooth. So our dough is looking lovely and smooth and shiny, and it's cleaned the outside of the bowl, which is brilliant. It's quite a wet dough, so I'm going to use a spatula to take it off the dough hook here. Oh, it looks lovely. So we're going to tip our dough into this bowl that I've just sprayed with oil. Love that sound. And we're going to gently fold in the edges of the dough just to create a nice round shape. We can lift them out and tuck the edges underneath just to create a really beautiful ball of dough. Beautiful. It looks lovely. And if you press your finger gently down the top, it should slowly bounce back up, which means our gluten has developed nicely, it's perfectly kneaded and ready to rise. So we're going to wrap our dough in Glad wrap. It's really important that we don't let any air in, otherwise it's going to create a crust on the edge of the dough, which we don't want. So wrap them up nice and tightly. Great. Great! Now we're going to let this sit somewhere nice and warm for half an hour to an hour until it's doubled in size. Where's little Luke? He's so cute. So we can't have a jam donut without any jam, and classically you'd have a strawberry or a raspberry jam inside your donut, but I've decided we're gonna go blueberry jam for these donuts. So I've got some frozen blueberries here, and they're gonna go into our pot here. So into our frozen blueberries, we're gonna add some caster sugar, lots of caster sugar, and we're gonna do the juice of a lemon as well, just to add a bit of zang. If you roll your lemon on the countertop before you cut it open, it kind of releases the juice inside a bit better. I've got my handy dandy juice squeezer. This is the greatest tool ever. I'm just gonna give this a quick stir just to coat the blueberries in the sugar. Then we're gonna place this onto a medium heat until it comes to the boil. Now that the jam has come to the boil, we're gonna reduce the heat down to a low simmer and just let it simmer for around half an hour. We want it to be nice and thick and gloopy. So while jam is looking beautiful, I've just had it sitting here just to cool down a bit before I put it in the bowl. At the moment, it's nice and lumpy. I've got all the lumps of blueberries still in there. I love a lumpy jam. I love the texture when you bite into the donut, so I'm gonna leave them in there. But you could totally put it through a sieve if you wanted like a super silky jam as well. But what we're gonna do is get it into this bowl. I love jam. And we wanna wrap it up nice and tight. You wanna press the Glad wrap down onto the surface of the jam. Just stops the film from forming on the top. Now we're gonna put our jam into the fridge until we're ready to fill our donuts. Now we lick the spoon. It's my favorite part. I actually love jam so much. Delicious. Our dough has risen beautifully. He's huge, and our next job is to punch him down. It's never not a good job to do. The reason we punch it is we want to release some of that air that we've just added in. We're going to reform it back into a nice tight ball before we put it in the fridge for our overnight rise. So I'm just going to do the same thing that we did before, almost just fold in our edges, creating a nice ball. Now, this dough has to go in the fridge overnight. I know it's a long time, but it's absolutely worth it. We want to do a nice slow rise in the fridge. It's going to let our gluten develop really beautifully, and it's going to allow for really nice, light, fluffy, soft donuts tomorrow. Now, before we cover it back up again in Glad wrap, I'm just going to give it a little spray of oil. It's just adding a little bit of liquid onto the surface or oil on the surface so it doesn't dry out overnight. Woo! Right, last thing, let's wrap them back up and stick them in the fridge overnight. Remember, it's really important that no air can get inside, so it's got to be nice and tight. Perfect! Into the fridge, we'll see them tomorrow. Sleep well. Good morning, everybody. It is now the following day. Our dough has been in the fridge overnight, and it's time to see how he's looking. Wow. Oh, yeah. Our dough looks beautiful. It's risen nice and evenly. It's still nice and glossy and smooth on the top. It's time to roll them out. So because our dough's been in the fridge overnight, it's going to be nice and easy to work with, which is great. We'll just give it a little dust on the top. And time to roll. So it's easier if you put a cross across using your rolling pin to start with, and then you can kind of roll out each of the sides. Great, so My dough is nice and rolled out. I've just measured it. I've gone for about 1.5 centimeters or 15 millimeters thick, which is great. We've got to remember that they are going to rise both in the proving stage and when they go in the fry, so they're going to get nice and puffy. Our next job is to cut out some donut circles. So I've got a nice donut ring or circle ring cutter here. I'm just going to spray it really lightly with some oil just so it doesn't stick when it cuts through the dough. Personally, I like to put our little donuts onto their own little bit of baking paper. That way I don't have to touch them when I'm moving them, and I can even pop them straight into the oil on this little bit of baking paper. So let's go for it. Just gently push it out. Put them onto a circle. Amazing. We've got 10 beautiful, perfect little round donuts ready to go. Now I've got a bit of excess dough here, and we're gonna roll it up and re-roll it out because we don't want any food wastage and we want to eat as many donuts as we can. But the more we work this dough, the more elastic it's gonna become, which is gonna result in a bit of a denser and tighter crumb in our donut. So these ones won't be quite as yum as our original ones, but it's still a donut and we love donuts. You can even see, as I'm rolling this second lot out, you can see it just wants to pull back in and be nice and tight. But we'll work with it. And look, we got 4 extra donuts out, a little bit extra that we just re-rolled. And I know who's gonna eat them. So you can see here the difference between our original rollout and then where we re-rolled our offcuts and rolled them. We used exactly the same size cutter, but because we've worked the dough a bit more, it's a lot more elastic, so they've almost shrunk in a bit more. So these ones won't be as great as our original lot, but they will still be delicious. So we're gonna pop our donuts somewhere nice and warm just to prove for an hour, then we're ready to fry. Oh yes. So if you're unsure if your donuts are proved nicely, they should have doubled in size, and if we press on, you want to see a tiny spring back, not a huge amount, but if you kind of can push your finger in easily, they might have overproved, so let's have a little look. Perfect. Let's get them in the fryer. I'm just using a thermometer to test the temperature of my oil. I want it to come to 180 degrees before I fry. If you have a deep fryer at home, your deep fryer will tell you when you get to the right temperature. If you don't have a deep fryer or a thermometer at home, you can still test your process. I've got some tiny little offcuts of donut dough here. If you put a bit of donut dough in, it should bubble up and fizz around the donut dough, and it will start to almost bubble in the oil, and that will tell you when your oil is hot enough. That's perfect, that's exactly what we're looking for. So it's really, really important to remember that your oil is boiling hot. So we really want to avoid it splashing up on our skin, which is why doing them on these little square baking papers make it's super easy to get them into the oil. I just like to put the whole thing in, baking paper and all. It should start to fizz up, and as it cooks a little bit, our baking paper, we can just pull it out using our tongs. Nice and easy. We're looking to cook our donuts for around 2 to 3 minutes on either side. We want a nice golden color before we flip it over and cook on the other side. Perfect. They look so delicious. Once you get nice and comfortable frying your donuts, you can get a few more in here. I've just got some paper towels in here just to dab off some of the excess oil. Right, I'm gonna get a few more in my pan here, and we're gonna get cooking all of these donuts. Look at these, they look absolutely beautiful. Now we're going classic jam donut. I know we haven't put classic jam inside, but we're going classic and we're gonna dunk them in some caster sugar. I've also got a chopstick here, a super cute cat chopstick, and I'm just gonna poke a hole in each of them before we fill them with jam. It just helps some easy access, really. So poke a little hole in. You can even give it a little wiggle around to make some room for lots of jam. Then dunk in the sugar. Oh, look at that. Get all the sides. It is time to fill our beautiful donuts with our amazing blueberry jam. I love jam so much. Look at the color of that. Taste test. I love jam so much. I think blueberry is going to be a great choice. I've just popped my jam into a piping bag. I've got a round nozzle on the end here. This is a Wilton 12. And we're just gonna fill our donuts. If you're finding your jam, like me, you've used like nice chunky blueberries, if you find it's getting a bit stuck in the end of your tip, you can always take it out, mash it with a potato masher or even with a whisk, just to get a few of those big lumps out. But the lumps are delicious, so let's get filling. So we push in, squeeze until you feel it fill up a little bit. Oh my God, look at that. Oh, he might be a bit full. I'll eat that one. Oh, that's a good one. Now, it's the moment we've been waiting for 2 whole days. I'm so excited. This is the one I'm gonna eat. Let's rip it open and see what's inside. Oh my gosh, look how light and fluffy it is, full of jam. Yum. I could eat so many of these. The dough is so light and fluffy. The jam has got the tartness from the lemon. It's amazing. You have to make these. Thanks so much for watching along, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this recipe as much as I did, and I really hope you have a go at making it at home too. Tag me on Instagram if you do. I absolutely love hearing from you. That's all for me today. Subscribe to my channel, it really helps out. Peace. I'm just gonna eat 14 donuts.